Okay. Hello, everyone. This is Takayuki Suzuki from Wuhan, China. I'm a Japanese, and last 2 times of this discussion, I joined the discussion from Japan, but now I came and I now am in China, Wuhan. And, today we're going to have a discussion with Zara Ferreira from Portugal and Johannes Widodo from Singapore. First, I want to talk about a theme for the discussion today. Today it's titled Housing for Isolating, because now this poster is I used the picture of Wuhan city. I'll talk about it later. And my problematic is the housing and community, almost about the housing and community. Modernization was accompanied with explosive growth and concentration of population. A large young generation that migrated to big cities provided labor power and made nuclear families and became new consumers. Housing in modern movement were designed for these modern families, not for others. They came to the housing with different backgrounds, such as religion, family business, relatives, dialect, childhood, incomes, and status. Those had been factors to make a community. Neighbors didn't need to build an intimate relation between them because they belonged not to the district but to the society with social roles such as labor power or consumers. So a family with no kid have no relation with the district. This is what I felt and what I'm feeling in this situation under COVID-19. So when I was home, so as all of people over the world, I was in the house at all. And in the house, I worked in a university, and I work in the university and architecture office and architecture field. So I have a lot of friends and acquaintances and companies in the school or everywhere. But only in my neighborhood, I have no communities. I have no relation with them. So I know that I noticed under the situation by COVID-19. And housing, especially an apartment, has been designed as a symbol of closed space. Each house have only one steel door to open, close to a corridor that connects the stairway to or elevator to the district. Under COVID-19, many people have been locked down in their house. Concrete boxes locking down families inside with the steel doors set in a line on one side of corridor. So we might be able to say housing functions well for isolating. However, was it the function that modern housing was expected to work on? This is my primitive question. COVID-19 told us online societies won't require us to go to office or school for playing the roles. We can connect to any society online in the housing. And I think this teaching by COVID-19 is going to change basic ideas for housing or to enhance a function to isolate. So this is my basic question. And I told you I'm now in Wuhan. So Wuhan is, as all of you know, it's the space of origin of this of situation all over the world. In January in this year, so 11 years ago, many patients were found in Wuhan, and Wuhan was locked down in the end of January in this year. And this is Wuhan, and Wuhan is a very big city. It has a 13 million population, 30 million people for the population. And so it has a very old district and early modern architecture like this. It was French, designed by French architect in the beginning of 20th century. And now it's everywhere. So huge housing apartments there. This is Wuhan. And it was so shut down in the beginning of the February. So now let me have a few minutes to report the situation in Wuhan now. This picture was taken in the February. It's not my picture. It was on the National Geographic magazine. And nobody's there. Just one guy was crossing the big street. And so China locked down the cities and any towns, district perfectly from the end of January to until the end of March. So 2 months perfectly locked down. The situation became better, and now almost safe. This is the picture that I took in this month, December. So many people, mostly they wear the mask, but car or subway, metro, and the pedestrian, many people there, and almost no problem. And this is a picture that I took in December. So they wear masks, but and they say, of course, the government says we need to keep a social distance, but now. Yeah, we keep, but not so nervous. So almost normal situation we can see in Wuhan. And this is the picture that I took in Wuhan University with my students. I enjoyed my life with students now in the school. So almost now no problem in Wuhan. China. But of course, I cannot say it will happen again in China seriously, but now it's okay. And so I hope so all cities, towns over the world will become a normal situation early. Yeah, this is a report from Wuhan. And also, this is a picture of Wuhan. So I took show the previously. So apartment and the old station left side. It's early modern architecture, and right side of this picture it's an old district, and these apartment and old housing district were locked down in Wuhan city, and this is a pretty traditional alley in this area, and I think these.
I'm sorry, Suzuki.
Hi.
We are not seeing the screen.
You cannot see the screen?
Yes.
Oh.
Sorry to interrupt.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And this is a Wuhan city, and you can see there's a small array between the apartment. And every Chinese the housing district have such kind of a small array in the old district, like this. And when the district was locked down, this space could be used for the resident who lived there. So they can get out of the house to this area, but the district, the block of the town was closed. But this small array can work not only for the traffic or transit, but also for the community, I think. And this is also for such kind of narrow array and in the old district in Wuhan. And this is not array, but in China, they have a community not only inside of the building, but also for this kind. So they just in front of the housing apartment. So it's very important for them for their not only for the traffic but also for communities. And on the street, as you know, the many Chinese enjoyed the game, so like a mahjong or card game there. So it's a very good space for the community. So I think it's in Japan. So I think this kind of space it should be important now. I think it is my just opinion. So as I told you, a house, especially the apartment, the house has only way to the world as a door, only one door. So if one door would be closed, a house would be isolated like this. So this is a very big problem now, I think. And I propose the one idea. So it has a continuous space like this. So if it is, if the apartment is locked down, shut down, they can have a space for the community like this. So each apartment or each housing must have such kind of space now, I think. So I think in the modern movement and in the end of 20th centuries, we built a lot of apartments without community space. But now I think we need to find the importance of the community again now, I think. So, or if it's shut down, still it can have a continuous space for housing. This is my proposal. And like a continuous space can have like this. Even in a corridor, we can have such kind of a community space as a continuous space for housing. And this idea is inspired by the continuous monument Super Surface and Happy Island by Super Studio. So I think we can learn from the idea for this situation from the many ideas by the architects in modern architectural history. This is my presentation. So I think now we want to see the report and presentation from the Portugal and Singapore. So Zara, can you present your presentation now?
Yes, thank you. I'll share the PowerPoint. Okay. Good afternoon for some, good morning for others. I will present a reflection entitled Housing as a Living Process. Lockdown may be the new paradigm for everyone, but we are not all the same, nor do we live all the same way. Likewise, modern movement architecture is wide and diverse. We can live in a house made of adobe in a village in Egypt, designed by Asafati. We can live a compact capsule in a tower in the center of a big city like Tokyo, or we can now live in our countryside house near the beach as this one by Coder. The modern movement gave the world the enormous amount of beautiful houses where none of us would mind to spend our quarantine today. From Mexico to Kyoto, flexible layouts with amounts of light and stunning views to the exterior private spaces reveal notions of comfort that are not available to the most common person. Actually, most of these houses are museums today. What brings us here today, I think it is the rule, the greatest number, all the people who live in flats in urban contexts. But still, we are not all the same way, nor do we live all the same way. There's a lot of variables that can change the way people live: culture, religion, money, health, professional activity, the type of household, etc. This graphic illustrates the most common family types in America using household definitions from the United Nations. We have from non-related people living together to old couples with grandchildren. For discussing housing for isolation within the current pandemic, and the resilience that modern housing has or not to address the current challenges, I organized my presentation in three binomial issues: functionalism versus flexibility, individual versus community, interior versus exterior. Concerning the first, putting an end to the high compartmentalization of bourgeois houses from the 19th century, the modern home is rational and functional organized, built to the proportions of adults, children, and their needs, with separation of functions, and filled with the features that guarantee the physiological and psychological comfort of the residents. Le Corbusier said that the house should have separate functions allocated to different rooms. Still in the 20th century, the open plan was developed, but I believe it has been mainly in the 21st century that it has been applied to collective housing. The organization of modern homes was mainly planned by a partition of day and night functions, or between social, collective, and private life. This scheme from a Serbian architect from the 70s correlates traditional functions that he considers to be compatible or not. After COVID, we need to add several to them: teleworking, home working for those who already worked at home and suddenly have to share the space with others who didn't before, virtual meetings, virtual education both for adults, children, teenagers, studying. Students probably were doing that at home before, but others may not. Libraries have been closed. All the types of communication not envisaged in the 70s, like video calls, text messaging, etc. To teenagers who might be discovering their sexuality or couples split apart, virtual sex. Medical appointments, including those of psychiatry that required some privacy. Pray, as some places of worship were also closed. Virtual cultural activity and entertainment, as online theater, concerts, virtual visits to museums, watch cinema, listen to music, online shopping. Play, in the case of children, it's important, virtual gyms, places for sterilization of all the things that came from the outside, and places for isolation within home in case of illness. Compartmentation may not satisfy our specific needs, neither the open plan may combine well different functions. The high precision and inflexibility of modern housing is often pointed as its greatest weakness as far as change over time is concerned. We all know the changes that post-industrial society has brought in the way of living. Consumerism and individualism grew as new paradigmatic lifestyles. Women started working outside home. The ways of working and the types of household got increasingly diverse. People relate to each other at a distance, a condition that COVID has reinforced. But even if the post-war CM congresses in the 60s centered around the idea of change and stressing that architecture and planning should lose their finite character, some cases of modern architecture envisaged adaptable solutions, in fact. Ms. van der Rohe was a master of the open plan, having actually brought to collective housing what used to explore the fullest in single houses, the fluidity and the flexibility of the space by the use of movable partitions, in this case, wooden panels that can be combined according to the desired interior organization. This is something not innovative for Japanese traditional housing, for instance, where spaces are used not according to specific functions, but according to different time phases of the day, by sliding paper screens. These learnings were also brought to collective housing, as in this case. With the unité d'habitation, I don't wish to speak about moving partitions, but about the flexibility that the organization in height can contribute to space. The rooms being so far away of the living room give actually a high level of privacy. Also, we all know that modern architecture was developed in step with an amazing evolution in terms of furniture design, that in some cases allowed to envisage flexible solutions using folding or nestable furniture. In this case, we see the same flat during night and during day. Later, on a more extreme side, research has been made to conceive totally open flats, where a central core composed by the kitchen and toilet facilities would be the only fixed elements, around which closet, shelves, or movable partitions could be organized to define the space according to the desires of the residents. Later in the 20th century, we can find several experiments where the house is no longer understood as a finished product, but more as a living process, changeable and designed to adapt to the transformations imposed over time by both people and nature alike. This concept of evolution fits theories such as the metabolism that have suggested that buildings and cities should be designed to propagate in the same way as the material substance of a natural organism. Previ is a built example of such theories in Peru that have influenced Aravan and Chile, for instance, where only half houses were designed, hosting the essential infrastructure and leaving the expansion into an empty space to be developed by its inhabitants, tailored to their needs and possibilities. This concept of appropriation linked with participation is fundamental for the development of a strong identity in connection to the housing place. Born out of the Portuguese Revolution, the local ambulatory support service stands as one of the most pioneering experiments in 20th century Europe, based on process led by architects who worked in collaboration with local communities and popular knowledge, trying to address the urgent housing needs of the underprivileged communities across the countries. Projects like this, last ones, end up having a strong community, leading me to the next point, individual versus community. Technology and modern systems of communication as the internet are being praised and reinforced everywhere, and of course it must be. It has been the way to keep the world spinning. Sometimes the only difference seems to be that we change from the outside to the inside. It is cool because we can be all together and connected. But I wish to make the counterpoint. Internet is not available to all, and the sudden organization of the world grounding on it can promote exclusion and isolation. This is to say that community is important, as some people may rely on it to survive. We are collective animals, and contrary to what is said in the call for this discussion, I don't agree that a family with no kids has no relation with the district. There are several dimensions approaching people within their neighborhoods: religion, culture, nationality, sexual and gender orientation, age, mutual interests, economic status, social level, shared passions and problems, and so on. We may say that the most common format of modern public housing, as the one that is commonly perceived as the failure of the modern movement, doesn't actually promote social interaction. But that is something for a different discussion, since it is grounded in a complex equation of politics, economics, and social science. In any case, what happened first in Italy and then all around the world, with all those people on the windows playing music, singing, and interacting, proved us wrong. It is actually something common, at least in Mediterranean countries. The modern movement developed several ideas grounded in the concept of community, in direct connection with the concept of the individual. From the unit neighborhood to establish self-contained neighborhoods with sustainable access to amenities, to several researches about how the individual and the collectivity should relate to each other, eventually rescuing the importance of the meaning of the street and the plaza as important public meeting places. I believe modern movement had this capacity of self-reflection or self-criticism that was of vital importance for enabling it to transform and evolve. Not only in the urban scale, but also on the level of each building, elevated walkways in multiple-story communal spaces were representatives of the post-war new and open society envisaged by Karl Popper, representing a new egalitarian society that was to be inclusive, as Aldvanik puts it, for each man and all men. Momo is about democracy. It's about to contribute for a healthy and organized society. We can also find architecture that allows communication between neighbors, maintaining the so desired physical isolation today. All these types of organization are important to fructify local communities. I don't believe the world will change in a way that we cannot be out of home anymore. Technology will invent some way to keep our outside life in a protected way. So these communities are fundamental to keep us resilient when the world takes a different direction and when suddenly we find ourselves with a lot of limitations. Otherwise, the Smithsons will be right when they envisage the house for the future. That whereas it is accurate in terms of space diversity to envisage different uses, and despite of having a central patio, which is very nice, it works like a bunker with no connection to the outside world. I hope we are not going on this direction. On the other side, our privacy seems now to be many times under observation. This new reality where we have to combine professional and familiar life under the same space and shared by different persons is many times a difficult conflict to deal with, or simply a new paradigm we have to embrace. This new reality where we have to family life in the same space, however happy, makes the house smaller and smaller over time, because each of us are so overwhelmed with our own private life. Relationships become harder to cope with, and mental health becomes an issue. Of course, that is not really only something related with the lockdown, since people are losing their jobs, family and friends, have fear from the unknown, are far away from their relatives, etc. But it is also about lockdown. That's why community is important, but also the contact with the exterior, and we move to my third point. Either is a terrace to take some vitamin D, which is very important, or to informally play old habits. Either is a tiny service balcony to find some silence from the interior to be able to work, because now is the street that is quiet, and most of the time is the interior that is noisy. On this third point, I wish to remember that the modern movement is deeply connected with health since the beginning, both physical and psychologically. The health house was designed based on the conviction of Neutra that houses could be able to cure inhabitants from their neuroses through a fluent relationship between the interior and the exterior. Furthermore, some researchers point out that modern architecture was shared by the need to treat tuberculosis. This topic is double special as the birth of Docomomo comes from the restoration of the Zanestral Sanatoria. Treatment of tuberculosis was made by fresh air, sunshine, gentle exercise, and nutrition. Therefore, south-facing windows, porches, and balconies enhanced sun exposure, while pure volumes were enabled spaces easy to clean. Anyway, we all know that the Industrial Revolution gave modern architects and urbanism the opportunity to sanitize cities, promoting organized urban settlements and buildings oriented according to the sun, surrounded by trees and vegetation. In COVID times, a balcony or any private space in contact with the exterior probably feels like the best of our homes. People who have transformed their balconies into marquises all around the world might be now blaming themselves. But there are other solutions rather than a balcony. High-density low-rise is very successful on giving the residents the opportunity to have a courtyard and a fair contact with nature. They are also especially accurate in COVID times since it doesn't need the use of the lift as a place of easy contamination. But the presence of a courtyard was also extrapolated to high-rise buildings like these examples of intermediate habitat, combining the features of both single and collective housing. The understanding of the importance of these exterior spaces was further explored on situations where learnings from traditional settlements were brought to modern architecture. I wish to conclude stressing 2 points. There are 150 million people homeless worldwide, and according to Habitat for Humanity, 1.6 billion people lack adequate housing, with about 15 million forcefully put out every year. In percentage terms, these may not be very high numbers, but with COVID, they will increase. Reuse must be considered as a solution, especially when we face so many vacant places all around the world. The second point is that I believe we reached a point where we have something in common with modern architects. Both wish to provide for the new man, but both them at some point, and as now, don't really know who is that new man yet. But one thing I am sure, man is only universal when it comes to satisfy their most basic needs, where shelter is included. But after those assured, there's no such thing as an universal man. And that's why research and debating is important. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. It's a very great presentation so that we can understand the history of modern housing and the idea for individual and community, and also the flexible open planning. It's very great idea. And we can understand so well. I have a question. Maybe Professor Widodo have a question, but later we will discuss again. So now may we have a presentation by Professor Widodo? Can you?
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, let me just share my screen. All right, so I will start from the question posed by Professor Suzuki before, about these three questions. And I will try to use Singapore as a case because Singapore is one of country that put a lot of faith to modernism and trying to use modernism as the main typology and also in the morphology of the city and put it in reality. And also my presentation, I think, is quite fit into what Zara is just presented just now about the importance of spatial flexibility, communal support, connection to natures, and so on. So let me start by showing you this is the topic that I want to choose. I call it resilient modernism in relations to housing and wellness. And resilience means, in dictionary terms, for a person or animal, the ability to withstand or recover quickly from difficult conditions. And if it's related to substance or object, the definitions is able to recoil or spring back into shape after bending, stretching, or being compressed. So I think this is perfectly shows what is happening now. The COVID and pandemic situations give us a lot of stress and issues and problems, not just in terms of physical, but also in terms of mental, social, economic, and all the structure that we have today. This is the statistic of what happened in Singapore during the outbreak. The interesting thing is, yes, we are facing the same issues like Wuhan, like different parts of the world until September. And if you look into this graph in October, it's flattening. And since a month ago, the communal case in Singapore is almost zero. Of course, we still have problems in the border when people coming from outside and they're caught in the airport having the virus, but all of them has been isolated. But one of the interesting aspects, if you look into the nationalities, Singapore is very multinational country. It's a small island. It's only 700 square kilometers. It's high density. And also we have a lot of high-rise building. So the situation is really look quite bad. And at the beginning, we thought that the high-density urban form is the issue about the high case of infections. But if you look into the breakdown of the nationalities in Singapore, you see there's a Bangladeshi, Indian, of course there's Singaporean, the Chinese, Myanmarians, Malaysian, unidentified, and others. See, the most of the infection actually is affecting the Bangladeshi and Indian. And this is referring to the different class in the society, which is the foreign laborers. Because Singapore is very much dependent to foreigners in the construction sectors, and the maritime sectors, in the marketplace, and so on. So we, especially in the construction. So we import a lot of foreign workers and we put them into a dormitory. And if you look into the case in Singapore in April 17, for example, so you can see the yellow is a local cases in dorms, and dorm is referring to the workers' dormitory. Blue is the imported case. It's very low, of course, because of the lockdown. And then orange is work permit holders not residing in dorms. So it's also foreign workers or foreign laborers with working pass. So it's not employment pass. It's referring to the labor in constructions and industries, which is quite high. And the community case, which is more or less under control. So the issue is really about these situations. It's not about density, but actually we learned from this incident, the problem is overcrowdedness. When the contact between persons is very, very intense, it's very close. So it's not just in worker dormitory with this kind of situations, but also in nightclubs, in restaurants, in churches, religious, ceremonies, when people tend to sing or to split, to spread the droplets into the air. So the overcrowdedness is a problem. Second issue that we found from these lessons is bad ventilations. So if you look into these situations in the typical workers' dormitory in Singapore, the ventilation is very bad. And also it happened mostly indoor, and also because of the touch and contacts. So these are the situations facing by the lower class in the society and the highest case of COVID spread. So it's not about density. So it's nothing wrong with the density. It's nothing wrong with the high-rise or Singapore apartment. Okay, let's see what happened in the middle normal Singaporean house. Yes, the issue is not about overcrowding like the dormitories, but it's the issue of about privacy. There's an illustration here, common problems working from home. You try to work, but it's very noisy from all family members. So when the school all closed, you have primary school kids, you have a lot of even the parents and so on live together in the house. So there is a territorial war. You have to subdivide the tables, and it's very easy to be distracted. And you cannot work as efficient as you are in the office, especially for women with children. And this has become a big issue. It's a lot of psychological issue and problems. Now, if you look into the housing situation, this is what the typical Singaporean lives. It's called a public housing. The situation in 1950s, of course, it's looked like a middle, it's like other developed cities with a lot of environmental problem, overcrowded and so on. But then in the 30s and the 50s, we start to build flats, first by the social housing and then become a public housing in 1965 onward. So people move into these vertical apartments, and they follow very strictly like the ideas from Ebenezer Howard, the Garden City, mixed with the ideas of Le Corbusier. And so we have this kind of situations in Singapore, big transformations from a traditional rural or urban Asian situations into a very modernist, quite spacious urban blocks with very generous space inside the building, flat for 2 rooms, 3 rooms, 4 rooms, 5 rooms in Singapore, and also a very rational urban planning like Newtown. And this is the typical public housing flat that most Singaporean live. The one is so-called the 2-bedroom on the left, and then you have the 3 rooms. 3 rooms mean 2 bedroom and living. We have 4 rooms, means 3 bedroom and living, and 5 room, which is 4 bedrooms in 1 living. As you can see, it's very packed. Is problematic, of course. But of course, in terms of ventilations, in terms of air conditioning, there is no issue. But the issue, of course, is because of this close proximity and privacy and psychological stress. So if you look into the situation in urban situations of Singapore, even right now, the public housing, compared to the so-called workers' dormitory, there is a class of society that makes life is very different. It's very similar to what happened in the Paris in the 19th century. But then, of course, we learn a lot from the idea from Tony Garnier, industrial city, that's being faithfully followed by Singapore in trying to develop the city. Even the idea of garden city combined with the idea of Randstad in Holland by Otto Koningsberger in 1963 has become the foundations of the urban planning. That you have the central CBD with the populations under control, 1.5 million. And then you have the satellites town for working and living and recreations, and no one live 200 meters from the public parks or waterfront. So all of this is the resemblance and the reflections of all the modernist idea that shape Singapore urban planning. And the idea of garden city is further pushed into the so-called the garden, city in the garden idea, where the greening has become like national priority. And now, from the last master plan of 2019, the concept is not city in the garden anymore, but even pushed further into city in nature. Why? Because this tiny island understand that in order to have a productive society, in order to have a healthy and well society, you need to really embrace nature, because nature can cure. Nature can have this potential to reduce stress and give a kind of happy life. This is exactly what the modernists think in the past when they escaped from the problems of the Middle Ages and from the mid-century housing conditions. The biophilia, fall in love to nature, is actually saving Singapore from this issue. And then, of course, it's moving towards into the mandatory standard, building standard, the so-called the well building standard, the performance-based system that measured based on the air quality, water, nourishment, light, fitness, comfort, and mind. adopted from the Green Building Council in the US that will push the so-called sustainable of the green standard into a wellness standard, which is much higher. So this is really putting the human in the heart of the matter. And then what happened to the pandemics? So this is what the post-pandemic house perceived by Singaporean. There's one article written in the newspaper and the social media, the wish of Singaporean, but also the directions of the planning of the future. We want to have more flexible spaces. That means that if we have to work from home, most of people will not go back to the office in the new normal. Maybe only 50% will come back to the office, where the work from home will stay for the next so-called the new normal. So we need a more flexible space to reduce stress and conflict. Means that the space should be not compartmentalized, but at least there's some flexibility to arrange different people with the different needs within a small space. And then second, emphasis on entrances, because during the pandemic, of course, we don't want to touch, we need delivery man. Food is delivered to home, not just newspaper and milk, but also food, groceries, everything. So emphasis of design will move into the entrance. How the design of the entrance will be able to facilitate these safe transitions from the outside and to inside, and also to facilitate the touchless deliveries. A lot of emphasis also will be put into the outdoor and wellness spaces, not just indoor, but the spaces like terrace, spaces like gardens, like park connectors will become the main priority. And work from home is here to stay. I mean, well, we have to accept reality that the home design will evolve into something else. It's become more like even working space. And this has been actually implemented many, many times ago. So when Zara talked about this, the importance of communal support and connectivity, I think this communal live, which is so-called the kampong lifestyle, has been implemented in many public housing designs since about 10 or 20 years ago. This is one example of how the high-rise apartment has been split into 10 stories, and every 10 story we have they created a space. And this public housing, Skyfield, is designed by Wuhan in 2018 and won a lot of awards, which is basically showing that this place, you see, if you look into the design, is simpler. The plan compared to the older public housing give ample of space, especially in the living area. So it's not split into a smaller room, but it's more flexibility given to even to the bedroom and the living room, from the 4-room, 3-room, 5-room typology. If you look into, of course, the standard of living is being up, but you see a sample of sunlight. If you look into the design of the window, it's also allow cross ventilations. It's not 100% aircon, and there's less wall in between. So you can create more spaces within the house. And of course, there's plenty of outdoor spaces, like the rooftop, a communal space, even the balcony at the level 10 or level 20 or level 40. So you have these spaces for interactions, for community gatherings. So you can see that the design is become more porous. Connections with nature is become closer, and even it's moved beyond the building itself. It's connect with the so-called the park connectors network. So this is the site plan of the Skyfile in 1000. So you see directly connected to Alexandra Canal Linear Park. And this linear park actually is connected from a different neighborhood into Marina Bay, and it's a park connecting the entire city into a web of greens. So it's actually, this is a kind of implementations of the dreams of Corbusier when he designed Chandigarh, about the green city with abundance of open spaces. Every dwelling has equal share of three elements: sun, space, and lush green vegetations. And the city is mixed for living, working, carrying a body and spirit and circulations. And also the idea of the communal living for all inhabitants, to shop, to play, to live, come together in the vertical garden city. And of course, one of the interesting aspects, like the interlocking system of residential volumes, open volumes with double height space, flexible and spacious living space, balcony protected by a brise-soleil that allows the cross ventilations, private terrace and garden, contactless delivery, like this one. And most interesting actually is this one. When Corbusier already think about this, you know, the special grocery deliveries and ice delivery, man doesn't need to go knocking the door, just put in the box, and there's kind of turnstile, and then the ice will go straight into the table kitchen like this at the bottom. So this kind of innovations actually is very modern and is very relevant to the present situations. And maybe we need more of this kind of innovations in the post-COVID situations. And what happened to the dormitory for the workers? Immediately after these incidents about the explosions of cases in a very bad dormitory, we put Singapore government shame in the face of the world, because it's become like big news. How come that these very first world countries can happen this kind of situation for the foreign workers who help to build the country is so bad. You know, that's why immediately this has been rectified, and the new dormitory is become better. And these principles of density, the control of a crowd, is about the ventilations, about the more spacious inner space, about less contacts and touch point. It's been addressed quite well. So if you compare before and after, left and right here, immediately we can see the difference. How modernity, modernism, modern thinking, and the idealism, if it's really put into action, is really able to make life better. And this is what modernism is all about. And it's dealing with the so-called the aging society. You know, this is the typical urban block that is being developed in Singapore to address the aging society. Is integrated urban block, very close to MRT station and transportation hub. It's a mixed use. The basement is used for parking, for circulations, and then you have supermarket also at the bottom, shops and restaurant, and you have a big public space here, like a community center. And then the second floor is a big food court. Third floor and fourth floor is community, is like elder care, children center, kindergarten, and hospitals and clinics, hospice, it's all here. And then on the top, you have garden, community farm, urban farming. The residents can grow vegetables, herbs, and ornamental plants, at the same time also to interact with each other. And there's an apartment specially designed for the elders, about 100 unit apartments there. It's implemented a lot of green features like pneumatic waste conveyance system, blouse wheels, solar panels, and so on into this building. So it's for elder and childcare, urban farming, community places, social services, economic amenities, mobility center, high-rise, high-density, modern village come together in one urban block. And this is called the urban village. So I think the move towards the future will become like this. And we are talking about this internet technology. We are moving towards 5G, but we understand the internet is not sustainable. It depends on energy, it depends on electricity, and it's costly. And the possibility of blackout is also imminent. So therefore, the dream of the society 5.0 which is human-centered society that balance economic advancement with the resolution of social problem by a system that highly integrates cyberspace and physical space, which is also a combination of society, the best advantage of society 1.0, like sharing, and the best advantage of society 2.0, like urban farming, and society 3.0, the industrial, the making and innovations, and society 4.0, the connectivity, will become the dream of the next stage of modernism. So to end my presentation, my argument is the survival instinct, sense of purpose, and ability to adapt as in the human DNA. So we are always trying to escape and to be able to overcome all the problems. The connections between human, city, and nature remain the same from the past, from the primitive people until today. The human is a social being who is always longing to be in nature. And modernism itself is the genesis of modern lifestyle and ethos for the people, before, after the pandemic, and for the future, for the new normal. And modern architecture actually testifies to the creativity of our past generations, and it will become the vital foundation of our future. So therefore, conserving, revisiting, and continuing these modern innovations, ideas, techniques, and forms at the building, urban, and landscape levels will ensure that this will continue to have a meaningful presence in our everyday lives. And this has become the key of our survival. So to end my presentations, my argument is, well, COVID will pass. Things may change, but modernism has been giving us a lot of ideas, a lot of experiments and experiences that may be useful to face another disaster in the future, the climate change. It's the 17th Sustainable Development Goal, 17 SDGs, about poverty, about whatever that should be achieved by 2030. That could be easily overcome if we really have a strong faith in modernism and modernity. So I want to end my presentation by quoting this: be alive for today, and let's hope for tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Widodo. And it's a very interesting and yeah, as you say, we can learn from yesterday and we can make it for tomorrow. I totally agree. Also, modernism is it's an international idea. So in any area or in any class or for any culture, we can learn and we can use it for our society. On the other hand, now we had two different presentations from Portugal and Singapore. So I can say one of two is report from west edge of our world, and another one is from east edge from our world. So those are very different, and I have a very big curiosity for these difference, because you know, COVID-19, coronavirus, this is exactly international situation, international menace, common menace for the world. And so it's a very true international situation, such as modernism has been so. And so it's a common international situation, but in the religion, so the as the different religion or different region or different situation, it appears with different situation. So now we can so for example, Professor Widodo mentioned about the density or economics or yeah, and I was interested in density, so it's pretty different from the Asian situation and the European situation, and also maybe the idea of family or community. And maybe we can talk so with the international conference like this, and we can talk about the family and the community, but maybe a little bit different. It will be different in the Asia or in Europe. So I want to discuss about the difference, such kind of things. So or density, economics, culture, community, or Professor Widodo mentioned about the nature, and the Zara also mentioned about the flexibility, and maybe of course flexibility is one of the very important idea for modernism, and we believe we can apply it, the idea of flexibility for any culture or any situation, any region. But actually, how the flexibility can be applied for each culture, I want to see. So first, I want to ask Zara. So, what do you think about Professor Widodo's presentation? And also, I want to ask you. So, how different in the Portugal situation from the situation in Singapore? What do you feel? What the difference could you feel from the basic presentation by Professor Widodo? Can you tell me, Zara?
Yes. Yes, thank you. About the Widodo presentation, it was very inspiring, of course, and I think we share the same position about the whole situation. About differences, of course, even in Europe, there's a difference between, in generic way, North and South. In the South, in the Mediterranean countries, we are used to live much the street because it's sunny, and it's in our ADN, very connected with agriculture and with land and so on. So to be close at home, it's not common for us. While in the north, the days are not so long. They are used to have more rainy days, to be at home, etc. On the other side, for instance, in UK, you know that even in Norway and Denmark, Sweden, they are used they have a strong contact with the countryside, where they used to have homes and so on. But I think the other main difference between Asian countries and Europe, I don't know much about Asia. In fact, Asia is a big, big land. But I think it's the overcrowd that Widodo spoke about. We don't have many overcrowd buildings, neither houses. The same happens with Latin America. When Maki thought about Previ, he understood that families there used to have 6 kids and so on. So I believe there's an issue also of overcrowded in Latin countries that is not so common in Europe. I think the average is to have 2 kids or even less. I think these are the 2 main differences. Because the others, I think it's pretty common. The use of the internet is so generalized, and I totally agree with the society point 5.
Can I continue?
Yes.
Before we start, I have a joke, right? Why in the West, like US, Europe, there's a lot of cases, the increase of the cases, and they refuse to wear mask. While in Asia, we are very, well, especially Japan, Korea, Singapore, China, we wear masks. So it's just a joke, because if you see Batman and Superman coming from the West, they have eyes covered, but not the mouth. But in Japan and China, the ninja and also the Dorobos and all this, you know, the martial art, they always cover the mouth. So it's cultural. So my point is, so probably there's a cultural factor about behavior, because the design of modernist design is universal. And we know that the modernist design is actually neutral. It's not the cause of the spread of the disease. It is not an issue of isolating. But modern design gives a flexibility, because modern design is a framework. It's a frame, not a box, actually. Easily to reprogram, easily to rearrange. So the problem is not architecture. And the problem is not about the urban design. We know about the idea about garden city, vertical garden city, and so on is already there. So the only factor that if we connect with the incidence of COVID outbreak and death is probably is cultural. It's about how we care to each other. It's about social responsibility. It's about, if I wear a mask, means that I'm not protecting myself, but actually I'm protecting the rest, the others. And maybe this is different from culture to culture. In the sense of individuality, if somebody died, although it's not my family member, I feel sad and I feel connected. The sense of empathy. The empathy of different culture is different towards the others. So probably the key is really about the human behavior that makes the difference in terms of the how we use the space, how we care of the others, how we treated the so-called the common good. Whether the public space is for me, or public space is usually I submit myself to the public. In Asia, probably because we feel that the public space is not belong to me, but belong to others. So I have to act responsibly in the public space. But in different contexts, probably say, this is me, you know, everything is centered to me. So I don't care what happened to the rest. You think this is an issue?
I think that is also related with habits. I think the majority of people are not very flexible on instantaneously change habits. And in some cultures, as I was saying before, we are used to live on the street, to share everything with everyone, to be connected, to be together. And I think at least here, I mean, what I see, it's a certain the opposite of resilience, a certain against of difficulty to admit what is happening. I think because otherwise we all be all crazy, and we don't want to believe that
it's called ignorant.
Yes, ignorance, exactly. Until the moment it actually happens to us. And also about changing habits.
Yeah, I think this is universal. So I'm not talking about stereotyping West versus East, but this is universal because there's a lot of irresponsible people also in Asia. So that's why the cluster, the so-called the cluster can happen anywhere, right? It's because of this, as you say, it's a habit. And this is related to how we educate our children and how our children behaves. And is there any control on the society? Whether the society helping to make people actually not compromising, but also conforming to a certain values that belong to the society. So maybe in the West, because we are given a lot of freedom, you can do whatever you like. Not the West, even in some Asian cities, even in Singapore, some parents also let the children whatever they do. And of course, this creates a lot of problems.
Yes, I see that here too. And of course, I don't do that. And of course, I suffer with the lack of liberty that my son is having. Sometimes it feels like the allegory of the cavern of Platon. It's like he doesn't know the world outside, and I am priving him to know the real world. And
Yeah.
some parents don't wish to do that.
Thank you. I want to ask to both of you. Yeah, as Professor Widodo says, so modernism is a kind of frame, and so it can be adapted for any activity or any culture, I think. But on the other hand, so what they can do, actually it's a very big issue. For example, Zara mentioned about the interior and exterior and also the balcony. And maybe in Portugal, Lisbon, it's a beautiful city, and people can enjoy the drinking wine or playing music in the balcony, in the housing. But maybe in Japan, we don't such kind of have activity. So and also as Professor Widodo presented about the analysis for the social stratification, and also in Singapore, many immigrants are there, living there. So in this such kind of situation, how we can pose about actual activity in a common space or flexible space, or Widodo-san, do you have any idea for such kind of difference between culture?
No, I think the other, if we are talking about human, is this the internal factor, but the external factor is climate. You have 4 seasons, and normally the incidence of the disease like influenza is only mostly happen in the winter. Well, in the tropics, we have different types of disease, and we don't have the winter situations, right? So the building envelopes in terms of ventilations, in terms of isolations, is quite different treatment. The issue that we have a lot of balconies, openings, louvers, windows. So the creating cross ventilations for the house across the year is okay. So in the past, we have an issue about different outbreaks in the tropics. But the solution is quite easy. Just do the cross ventilations, improve the stack effect in the house by a central courtyard, for example, like in the case of shop houses in Singapore in the British Malaya, and also to move the toilet from the central to the back and creating back lanes. And that works in terms of controlling the outbreak and disease. Yeah, but in Europe it's a bit problematic because well, you can live nicely during the summer outside, a lot of but during winter, it's about isolation, it's about the possibility of outbreaks and so on. It's higher than in the tropics.
Okay, thank you. And also, I want to ask you, Zara, one question. So not only the difference in the area or culture, but also difference in the generation. In this situation, COVID-19 situation, taught us we have a difference between the generation. And Zara, you are a young generation comparing to me or Widodo. So what do you think? So for example, so when we talk about the community or society, it is always old community or old society. And for the young generation, how it looks like so the community or society look like for the young generation, and the young people can also the generation can use the common space or community space for themselves. So what do you think about such kind of things?
I agree with you when you say that our community can be nowadays society and not the neighborhood. However, that I think that changed a lot from situation to situation. Of course, we younger generations are more used to use the internet. I didn't born with it, but it was almost of it. 10 years younger than me, they born with it. So of course we can have friends and small communities around the world according to mutual interests and so on. But I think it's also, I think architecture, and I do believe that architecture and urbanism have an influence on developing our local community or sense of community, because I know several neighborhoods where when we born in a neighborhood that allows and promote that kind of interaction and close connection with our neighborhoods, that is something that prevails. And I know several people who born in, at least in Lisbon, that born in the neighborhood, then they married or so on, and they move even of country or even for another neighborhood of the city, and then they came back because they like to grow there. So I think it is increasing that the sense of having roots, because the globalization gave us this opportunity to travel a lot and to work outside our countries. But on the other side, already enough generations have passed to experience that and to feel that they miss a kind of identity roots. So I think my generation looks for both of the roles: the freedom to be involved with people from all around the world, but also to be somewhere connected with the relatives and the people around us, really physically.
I think one of the very big difference and advantage of the young people, the millennial generation, the Generation Z, is about economics, because they are not thinking about this like us, like myself, like older generation, that the stable career is important, to have a permanent job is important, right? For them, it's not important, because they work in the different models and perception of the economy, about sharing, innovations, and not afraid to fail, is trying whatever, and they have their own support, although it's not a physical support, but the support in the social media about like-minded people. You see, like flash mob, for example, the kind of culture. That it's possible that total strangers can come together in one place just because of the social media. Demonstrations in the street, in Bangkok, in different cities. The mobilization is very fast, And then, of course, if they lost the job, they just do take motorcycle and become a food deliverer, delivering food. And they can survive. And then if they have plenty of time at home, they do coding and develop apps, right? So I think this will give a new face to the next stage of the evolutions of the so-called the modern life. This can be very, very interesting, that we, the older generation, no need to worry. I mean, I always say to my children, I don't care about your problems with climate change, your problem with social justice or whatever. You will be able to solve that. You have to be able to solve that. I only deserve to have a rest, enjoy a cup of coffee, and no need to worry the rest of my life, right? And even if the climate change happened in 2050, all this disaster happened, I already somewhere, right? It's not suffering, but I think that the characters of the youth, that to answer Professor Suzuki questions, is for me, is a real hope for the survival of human civilizations. And that will shape also the new form of house, a new form of public space, and even the corporate offices. It may not be a corporate offices in the CBD anymore. Probably it's become like a lot of garage, a lot of startups. I just watched the Korean drama movie in Netflix, the startup about sandbox. There will be a lot of sandboxes. So the city is become like sandboxes to play, to experiments. And it's become the new place for inventions and solutions. I don't know, okay, because I'm very optimistic, right?
Okay, thank you very much. Now, I think, Anna, do you have any comment or question? Anna, can you tell any opinion or question, please?
Oh, I think I have lots of questions, but we could take a long time, and I believe now we are launching a short call for abstracts for the 16th Docomomo International Conference, Tokyo, end of August, so 29 August, 3rd September, and I think it's time to put or to stress this discussion in our conference. So I will try to ask, to promote this third call around this issue. And just, to be very quickly or try to make a very short contribution. First, I would say that I enjoy very much. I would like to greet Zara and Johannes Widodo. It was really very, very inspiring, both of their presentations and making us thinking on these matters in different ways. And I must confess that at this moment, I'm making a book review on a very interesting book that I'm going to show you. It's this book, The Age of Concrete, from David Morton, and has to do with Mozambique, with Maputo, and the aspirations of the population, to well-being, and all the book is on the suburban or the informal city. I would say the rich city. It's not the modern movement city, it's the city of the poor, of the discriminated, of the, mostly, of course, people segregated by racial questions, but as well by financial questions, because there's as well white people living there, the poor ones. And this is a real, very, very good question, which is, in really different cultures in Africa, cultures very, very, are still based in rural systems of rural survival bases. I mean, they really, need to live on the earth, to plant, to have their courtyard, they have no financial structure to live in an apartment. And it's amazing, this book, and this is a real great question for this Modernism Frozen. It's how are we, have we the right, to tell everybody that you must modernize and become an apartment guy? then perhaps you may keep, you know, your old way and slow way of life. I'm not, how do we say, making whitewashing the racial and all the political terrible problems in Africa. But this is, I think, a real good question to, you know, to enlarge in the future our discussion, you know, in these African cities where you have the city cores, would say the heritage center, which is a fantastic modern movement, amazing collection of buildings, of public spaces, mainly built by the niggers for the white, and incredible surroundings with all these reed suburban cities. And what we have now is these cores completely streeten, occupied by, in the case of Maputo, by the Mozambicans now, or since the 70s. And the streeten now, it's the new wave of capitalism, I would say, in a kind of Dubai image, and a little bit all the Singapore fantastic fulfillments with incredible buildings for very high level people. And I would say that these three sections or realms are really a challenge for 21st century future. I would just like to put this. It's a little bit different from Asia. Yes, Widodo.
It's interesting because if you're talking about these different contexts like Africa and so on, if you want to give them an advice to embrace modernity or to critique the embrace of wrong modernism, probably there are three things. One, if you are looking into the modernization or modernisms, look into the social agenda of modernism. It's the beginning of how the people move into the so-called modernism. It's about social agenda. It's about social justice. It's about democracy, right?
It's about governance. It's about governance and governance.
Yes, and you talk about the conservations, about this racial division conflict built by nigger and then for the white and so on. Forget about that. We can conserve as long as it's for the common goods. Common goods mean even is built by who in the past, but is open to everybody. So it's kind of people can enjoy each other legacies. And that is a part of the healing process of this bridging, if we use the term common goods, because it's like sharing, right? And then the third one is really to push the plan forward for the next stage of development by adhering the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, 17 SDG by the United Nations, because it's a member of UN, and by 2030, each member country of United Nations should have some progress in terms of addressing gender equality, poverty, water issue, climate change, which is spelled in the 17 SDGs. If that is the things that we, and then modernism can really become a cure, a hope. You know? It's not being cursed like in Dubai or in Singapore, because now we know that maybe 50% of the offices in the downtown will be empty in the new normal. So probably it has to be converted into public housing or social housing, right? So that could be another evolutions of so-called a full circle of modernism, coming back to the origins. And COVID is good because we give us time to reflect on this.
I agree, absolutely. And I thank you so much, always, for your open mind and your generosity on sharing scientific.
No, it's common sense, Anna.
No, but common sense is scientific thinking or not? Scientific thinking
yeah.
so different.
The basic of scientific invention is common sense.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you very much. Now 7:30 in Wuhan time, so 90 minutes we have had already. So I think it's a very good discussion. We have a lot of questions, maybe by each of you. You have a lot of questions, and the housing. We have a lot of possibility and also have a lot of problem, I think. And because time is changing, society is changing, and world is changing. And as Professor Widodo says, yes, we can. Modernism is under the frame, so we can use it for the changing world. But on the, right. But on the other hand, maybe the changing of the world is very quick, and internet online situation also is joining to the changing of the world. So, and the housing, it's maybe it's a most important place, most important project for the changing world. So we need to continue think about this housing problem, and also as Docomomo, so we need to research the housing project of in the modern movement could have functioned well under the COVID-19 situation, or not, or any problem in the modern housing project under this situation. We need to check it, and we need to learn from the situation, and we need to progress. We need to use the idea for our progress for the society. So I think all members in Docomomo should think about this problem issues all over the world, and we need to research it, I think. Thank you very much, Zara, Johannes, and also Anna, and also everyone in this discussion. And I think we will continue this discussion more. And next time, I'm now planning to have a discussion for the interior architecture, interior design, interior architecture, interior space, which proposed by the interior committee of Docomomo. And I will build up the actual theme for discussion.
And it's sorry, Suzuki, it's a pity that nobody is here today. Nobody from this committee to share this discussion. It's a little bit astonishing, because this has a lot to do with interior. I don't understand. Because it was quite spread everywhere, and nobody of this committee is here. So I doubt if they are really interested.
Maybe some miscommunication now we have, but yeah, yeah, it's my also my fault. I need to announce more with more long time in advance of the discussion.
I'm sorry.
So,
this was spread with the newsletter in the end of
yeah.
the month of November, and we send emails to everybody.
Yeah,
it's very strange. I'm not happy with this.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. I know. Yeah.
At least they should say something, you know, that I'm not able. I have something, you know, and it's silence. Strange.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yes.
Anna, maybe you can increase the fee, membership fee for them who cannot don't attend. Ask them to buy food or buy something for us.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Yeah.
It's a good idea. Yeah. Okay, whatever. So we will progress more and continue the discussion. And as Anna said, so I want to inform this discussion for more members in Docomomo and also for the general society, general world. So so we discuss more, and we will find some fruits in this discussion, and we will publish our discussion for all over the world. It's my hope. So thank you very much again. Thank you, Zara.
Suzuki, just one question. Do you have the schedule for the next meeting?
I'm not sure still, but maybe in the end of January or the beginning of February, I think.
It will be nice if we can participate in this scheduling.
Yeah,
I mean, Docomomo International, in order to have time to spread.
Okay. Yeah. I'll talk with you, and I'll talk.
And the committee, of course.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone, and see you next time.
Yes. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Please take care of your good health. Be safe.
Yeah. Thank you. Have a good year.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.